Laker Nation, what's good? You're watching the Lakers Report by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. So much to get to and unpack on today's show. And the news with Kyrie Irving not trending in the good direction if you wanted the Lakers to trade for him. According to Shams, his most recent report not very optimistic about Los Angeles' chances to land one of the best point guards in the NBA, who of course has a lot of questions with his lack of availability in between the lines. Shams saying this on The Athletic on top of what he said about Kevin Durant. For their part, the Nets believe they have improved the roster and have a championship-level team. The Nets traded for Royce O'Neale. They signed T.J. Warren. They brought back Patty Mills and Nick Claxton while expecting the full returns of Ben Simmons, Joe Harris, All-Star Kyrie Irving opted into that $37 million player option that committed himself to this upcoming season in Brooklyn, and sources with knowledge of the situation say he has been working out with teammates and holding constructive dialogue with the organization this offseason. Brooklyn has made clear to interested teams that they plan to keep the seven-time All-Star, according to sources. And this is what I've been saying all along, more so on the Kevin Durant side of this conversation. Why would KD want to leave Brooklyn when the Nets have, in my opinion, one of the better rosters in the NBA? Let's just say their starting five is Kyrie, Kevin Durant, either Seth Curry or Joe Harris, Ben Simmons, and Nick Claxton, with that bench unit of Patty Mills, Royce O'Neale, T.J. Warren. That team is really, really good. So the Nets have a fantastic roster, but we're going to operate under this caveat. Yeah, maybe Kyrie Irving goes back to Brooklyn, and maybe he's had these conversations with the front office to return to the Nets. Only if, though, Kevin Durant also comes back to the Nets. If KD gets traded, there's absolutely no way, in my opinion, that Brooklyn brings back Kyrie going into that 1 year final remaining deal on his contract. It makes sense if you trade away KD, just blow the thing up, reset, rebuild, trade away Kyrie Irving as well, clear some money, get some good assets back via player capital and draft capital, and I think that's the best avenue for Brooklyn to take. But if KD comes back, then yeah, of course, if he wants to play alongside his homie Kyrie Irving, then it makes sense for both of those players to come back. Before we continue to break this down, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like our content, and if you love the Los Angeles Lakers. Here on the Lakers Report, we bring you multiple videos per week all year round because our coverage doesn't stop. Grind and hustle is certainly the motto. We are real ones. Those of you who are subscribed are real ones as well. We need 399 more real ones to get the 49,000 subscribers, and then after that, it's the big one. 50,000. YouTube.com/LakersTV, or even easier, just hit that red subscribe button down below. Let's continue this conversation, right? What if Rob Pelinka and the front office, what are they going to do if Kyrie isn't an option before the season? A couple of options out there, right? And a couple of trade partners that might make sense. And of course, you have to throw Russell Westbrook's name into this equation. Lakers' other options. How about a team like the Indiana Pacers? They have a couple of good assets on that roster, and I think they're in a little bit of a precarious situation because they're rebuilding, but they also have some players on the team like Miles Turner, like Buddy Hield, who could get dealt to a team like Los Angeles, and that would allow them to further that rebuilding process and give some burn to some of the young players on that roster. And for Indiana, you make a trade of Buddy Hield, and for the Lakers, you make a trade for Buddy Hield. One of the sore spots on this Lakers roster is shooting. That's what Buddy Hield would be able to bring this organization. Miles Turner would as well. In addition to leading the NBA in block shots the last couple of years, not Rudy Gobert, it's been Miles Turner. He can also stretch the floor, unlike Rudy Gobert. So that's why the Indiana Pacers, somewhat of an interesting team to hit up, make a trade to improve the Lakers roster right now and maximize things around LeBron James. The lack of shooting is really what ailed the Lakers last year. They had some of the most open three-point looks among all teams in the NBA, but when Russell Westbrook, is taking those three-point opportunities, you're not going to knock many of them down. Another trade option out there for the Lakers, it's the Utah Jazz. Now, a player they might be able to acquire is Mike Conley. Maybe it's Bogdanovich as well. Those are two assets that I'm keeping a close eye on. Other Jazz trade targets in addition to those two players. A couple who would appease me if I'm Rob Pelinka. Mike Conley Jr., as we talked about. Jordan Clarkson, a return to Los Angeles. He's a much better player now as compared to what he was when he was rocking the purple and gold. Patrick Beverley would help you on both ends of the floor, in my opinion, mostly defense, of course. Malik Beasley is a hyper athlete and a really good scorer. And then Bojan Bogdanovic. All those players could be trade targets for the Lakers to further improve this roster. The last option isn't an option that I like. It's the Lakers basically running it back with the core from last year of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and then some of the free agent acquisitions that they've made. That last option, stand pat. But I honestly don't think that the Lakers are good enough right now to stand pat if they want to compete for a deep playoff run and try to bring that 18th championship back to the City of Angels. And when LeBron James signs that 2-year, $97 million extension, I think he comes back hoping, and these were part of the conversations that LeBron had with the front office, as well as his representation with agent Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, that he wants to know that if he re-ups with Los Angeles, and now that's a fact, now that he did re-up, that they can compete in future years. And he should pressure the organization at least a little bit to try to improve this roster as much as possible. Exhaust all avenues. Don't stand pat and see what you can do to kind of make things happen with this Lakers roster. So now I want you to go back to school here in the comment section on the Lakers Report. Right now, the Lakers' current roster is what in your eyes? A, B, C, D, or F? Give me those letter grades down below in the comment section. Coming up next on the show, an old target from Lakers free agency is being linked again, this time via trade and not the free agency market. Who is it? We'll tell you in just a few moments. First, though, let's get ready to rumble. You already know the deal. Lakers Report is humming on YouTube or humming on Rumble as well, another video platform for creators out there. And sometimes we put exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else on the Lakers Report on Rumble. So go to rumble.com/LakersTV to see what I'm talking about. On top of that, free and uncensored content, sports, news, politics, tech, and business. We continue to grow to the platforms that you use, so let's get the 4,000 followers as soon as possible. When you plug in that link at the bottom of your screen, make sure you hit that green follow button. A very interesting subject matter that we want to discuss on today's show as we go back to our boy Shams Charania. Rumors grew this month that some Lakers executives want to explore Anthony Davis's trade value while it's at its peak right now. Now, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That anonymous executive said to Shams Charania of Heavy that the Bulls could be a viable trade partner. That's the new element of this discussion. And Zach Lavine keeps being linked despite re-signing and signing that monster deal in NBA free agency to return to the Chicago Bulls. Of note here, this could not and wouldn't happen until the trade deadline at the earliest for a couple of reasons. Because Lavine signed that contract extension, he cannot be traded until the start of the calendar year. And also, the Bulls would have to absolutely play a disastrous brand of basketball with all of the moves that they've made, signing and bringing back Zach Lavine to then trade him for Anthony Davis. But of course, AD is from the Chi-Town area. Shout out to Kanye, even though he's a little bit weird nowadays. And AD going back to Chicago would certainly be intriguing and be a huge talking point across all NBA circles and make things very interesting in the Eastern Conference. This coming from a Western Conference exec who put on his tinfoil hat and kind of looked at this in a couple of different ways. The main way it would happen, if it was going to happen, was to get Anthony Davis somewhere that he wants to go. And the main place he'd want to go is the Chicago Bulls, where he's from. Now, some guys do not want to play in their hometown, but I think that Anthony Davis would actually welcome that. He spoke on that before. It doesn't mean it would happen. They have not gone out and tried to trade him. The Lakers haven't. But there could be something simple like Zach Lavine for AD, get a pair of guys going to places they really want to be. It would have to wait until January, but that would be the deal that makes the most sense if Anthony Davis is going to change teams. And I think the Bulls would just have to implode. If Lonzo Ball is healthy, and with some of the moves that the Bulls have made in NBA free agency prior to suffering a plethora of injuries last year, the Bulls were one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, their record against other good teams and playoff level teams both in the East and the West wasn't good, but it was the most competitive that the Chicago Bulls had been really since Derrick Rose had that MVP campaign. Then they went downhill after that when he suffered that torn ACL. Really just a disaster for him, as well as a great basketball city in Chicago. The Bulls aren't going to think about trading Zach Lavine unless this experiment becomes a disaster. Billy Donovan just can't get it right. The Bulls would have to implode, and then maybe they make that trade of Zach Lavine to send him to Los Angeles for the hometown kid and Anthony Davis. And because it's a hometown kid, those storylines always certainly fun to talk about. Now, among those two players, I do want to see where your basketball knowledge is here and what you think about a fit with LeBron James. Who fits better with the King? D for Anthony Davis, give us the D in the comment section, or L for Zach Lavine. AD versus Lavine. Obviously, two different players. Did you catch what I just said? Some laughs in the office here. Stats with the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Stats with the Bulls for Zach Lavine. You look at the points per game, very similar, 24 plus for both players, but obviously AD is the much more premier defensive player. Zach Lavine, the uber-scoring wing, who also has pogo sticks for legs and can hammer it on your head. Anthony Davis, a very good athlete, but once again, a different athlete. So you look at the changes in styles here. Lavine, while injured a lot, has been much more available with the Bulls as compared to AD with the Lakers, but the upside of AD has been a lot higher as compared to Zach Lavine. AD, I call him a unicorn. He's a once-in-a-generation player. Scoring wings, you can get him a lot in today's NBA. Of course, it's one of the most sought-after positions, if not the most sought-after position, but again, a different player. And maybe it comes down to this for Los Angeles. Zach Lavine fits better with Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, if he can't stay healthy, maybe he just needs a change of scenery to get his ass in shape. So very, very fascinating to talk about. And of course, maybe these conversations will continue when we turn the calendar year, flip it to 2023, and then the NBA trade deadline is shortly thereafter. Before we hop on out of here, Real One roll call. If you made it this far, I greatly appreciate you. I know producer Sam Brown does as well. We want to show you some love in the comment section. Type Real One if you made it this far, and make sure you subscribe to the channel.